Hey guys, tonight we journey to a place where the sun never apologizes for being bright, where the river tells time by rising and falling in slow breath, and where linen, not gold, is the true currency of comfort. You arrive not as a visitor, but as a cat, a sleek, sun-lazy cat with a coat the color of dry straw and paws that never make a sound. You stretch your way into an ancient Egyptian laundry courtyard where sandstone walls trap the heat like it's a valuable guest, and workers with bronzed arms move rhythmically between tubs, buckets, and bundles of wet fabric. The smell hits. First, warm stone, damp linen, soapwort, sweat, and the faint sweetness of lotus. There's a starch pot bubbling slowly in the corner, and a basket of crushed acacia pods sitting under the shade of a fig tree. Everything is soaked in sunlight and scrubbed by habit. You walk the edge of the basin, tail flicking like a pendulum of disapproval, though secretly you're pleased. These are the best laundry workers in Thebes. One of them, she's young, maybe 15, with a cloth headband slipping off her brow, nods to you respectfully as she beats a robe against a flat rock in a rhythm you've heard so many times you could nap to it. You probably will, but not yet. First, you observe. A worker soaks roots in warm water, soapwort gathered fresh at dawn, its flowers already wilted. She mashes them gently, coaxing froth like a magician. This is the good stuff, the kind they use on priests' garments, or the high vizier's second-best headcloth. Too valuable for common tunics, too fragile for the army's gear. Another woman beside her adds natron, those chalky white flakes from the desert, to a different basin. That mixture smells sharper, almost metallic, good for stains. She says to no one in particular, especially the kind that come from wine, blood, or badly chosen festival food. You wind your way past a row of drying lines strung between wooden beams, each bearing robes so bright they seem to hold their own daylight. The workers call this place the clothes of the sun. You call it your spot. One girl with calloused feet and a laugh like cracked dates always leaves a square of folded linen for you atop the starch baskets. Today, it's there again, fresh, warm, and waiting. You hop up with the grace of someone who's never been told no. As you settle into your post, a lizard skitters past your paw. You ignore it. Laundry comes first. The workers hum, a song passed down from mothers who didn't write. It has no name, just a rhythm. Swish, beat, swish, fold. You close your eyes and let the sun warm the spot behind your ears. But then you hear something unusual. Not danger, just laughter. Too much of it. You open one eye. A young boy, barely old enough to carry a full water jug, has splashed half a basin over the stones. His older sister glares at him as she tries to salvage the robe, now stained with wet sand. He points at you. She made me do it. She rolls her eyes. The cat doesn't care about your stupidity. She's right. You don't. But now that you're wet, you care a little. You leap down and stalk away in mild offense, tail held just slightly higher than usual, past the starch pot, past the elder who never washes anything himself, but insists on inspecting every collar. You settle again atop a pile of unused reed baskets. They smell of river water and thyme. As you lick your damp fur, you listen. One woman explains to another how you should always rinse linen in Nile, water downstream, to avoid offending the goddess Satet. Another insists that a certain tunic should be washed only under a waning moon. Third murmurs about a laundry ghost, someone's cousin's cousin's spirit, who folds garments wrong if you forget the offering bowl. You don't believe in folding ghosts. You believe in warm rocks, belly rubs from trustworthy people, and not getting blamed for dropped tunics. A cicada buzzes nearby. The starch pot bubbles once. You drift into the first nap of the day, surrounded by the slow choreography of ancient cleanliness. You wake to the sound of collars flapping in the wind. Crisp linen rectangles snap and flutter above you like flags from a silent army. Clean, sun-bleached, and starched within an inch of obedience. The scent of soapwort lingers in the air, laced now with something sharper, vinegar, used for stubborn spots, and the faint earthy sweetness of mud drying in the cracks between flagstones. You rise slowly, stretching until your front claws grip the edge of a reed basket and your spine arches into a perfect curve. The air is warmer now, dense with the slow ache of midday. Even the flies seem drowsy. You move like a shadow across the stones, weaving between piles of folded tunics, heaps of headcloths, and one forgotten sandal left under a date palm. That sandal belongs to Neff, the palace laundress, who sings to her soap. She claims it listens better than people. You spot her now, sleeves rolled high, wringing water from a ceremonial sash. She whistles as she works, and her bare feet slap the whetstone in steady rhythm. She's hung the royal garments on the center line, robes so white they shimmer, with borders stitched in gold thread and tiny lapis beads that catch the sun like hidden jewels. No one touches those except her. Except, of course, you. You hop up to inspect the royal headcloth. Just a brush of your whiskers against the hem, a dignified nod of approval. Neff sees it and mutters, "Don't leave fur on that, or the vizier will blame me." You flick your tail. If the vizier's robes can't handle a little divinity, they weren't properly blessed. You make your way to the basin where the palace servants wash their own linens. This is the loud side of the courtyard, where everyone talks over each other, where jokes are shouted and laundry becomes theater. One boy has wrapped a half-wet tunic around his head and declared himself Pharaoh of Soap. You sit just far enough away to remain uninvolved, but close enough to collect tribute, which arrives in the form of a dried sardine flung with poor aim and better intention. You eat it slowly, gazing at the mock pharaoh until he bows. Balance is restored. You move again, this time toward the starching station. It's less chaotic here, more precise. 2 scribes, too refined to scrub, but too nosy to stay away, argue under the shade of a sycamore tree. One insists that tunics must be starched until they can stand on their own. The other scoffs and says collars should bend like reeds in temple pools. You jump between them, settling on the exact midpoint of their parchment diagram, a chalk sketch of a tunic with debate scribbled all over it. They pause. You yawn. One sighs. She prefers a modest fold. The other concedes, as she should. They roll up the parchment and shuffle off toward the sandalwood ink room, still bickering about hemline philosophy. You curl up beside the starch pot, where linen strips stiffen in the sun, weighed down with tiny stones to keep them from curling. The smell here is oddly soothing, like wet bread and fresh grass, and the warmth from the bubbling pot radiates into your side, like a nap invitation wrapped in silk. You almost doze again when a soft gasp pulls your ears upright. A new robe has arrived. Not just any robe. This one is enormous. Layered linen, pleated sleeves, embroidered with copper thread and tiny polished shells. A robe meant for ceremony, not sweat. Two guards carry it between them, arms stretched wide, like they're handling a scroll made of fire. They place it gently in the wash basin. It sinks like a ship, built to be clean only once. The head laundress clicks her tongue and mutters something about timing and gods who don't wear tunics. You jump down for a closer look. The robe's embroidery shimmers beneath the water. The shells click softly against the basin walls, like whispers from another kingdom. No one moves. Then Neff, quiet and sure, steps forward. She rolls up her sleeves, past the elbow, murmurs a prayer you've never heard before, and begins to clean. It's not loud or fast, just steady. The kind of cleaning you'd write poems about if you were the poetic type. You watch. Everyone does. Even the boy pharaoh falls silent. One by one, the robe's edges brighten. The pleats regain shape. The copper thread glints. After what feels like an hour, but might only be the length of one thorough nap, she lifts the robe from the water, and it shines. Still wet, but reborn. She drapes it carefully across the long line nearest the temple wall, where only the wind and the gods might look too closely. The courtyard exhales. Someone claps. Just once. Neff bows. You leap back onto the edge of the starch table and observe your domain. Tunics clean, workers steady, debate postponed, fish tribute consumed. All is as it should be, except you pause, sniff. There, beneath the acacia baskets, something new. A visitor, soft footsteps, nervous breath. You crouch, tail flicking once, but you don't pounce. Not yet. It's just the girl from the scribe's wing, the one who smells like chalk and fig paste. She carries a scroll, tied tight with blue twine. Her eyes dart left, then right, as she kneels beside Neff and whispers something urgent. Neff's brows lift. She glances at you, then nods, and just like that, the scroll disappears into the starch. Baskets, hidden beneath crisp linen and the smell of heat. You leap down again, stretch slowly, and slink away. Message delivered. You didn't see anything, except everything. You slip away from the starching station with the lazy confidence of someone who has kept greater secrets than scrolls tucked in laundry baskets. The sun shifts slightly overhead, filtered through the fluttering linens like warm, golden lace. You walk the edge of the courtyard until you reach the north gate, the one that leads to the water road. A familiar smell meets you there. Nile water, river mud, and the faint sourness of worn rope. It's water fetching time. You sit on the smooth stone threshold and watch. Two girls hoist clay jugs onto their shoulders and begin their slow walk toward the riverbank. They move in sync, hips swaying, steps even, arms steady. Their chatter drifts back to you, gossip wrapped in the language of laundry. Did you hear about the priest's tunic? One asks. The one that shrank, or the one with blood on the hem? The other replies. The blood was from a fig cart accident. The first says. He tripped. It's not divine punishment, no matter what old Mary says. They laugh. You don't. You've met old Mary. She thinks cats bring bad luck when they sit near wet laundry. You, of course, make a point of sitting near hers every single day. You trail behind the girls at a distance, not quite following, not quite not. The path to the river is well worn, flanked by papyrus reeds and fig trees, their roots clawing into the mud like lazy dancers. The air here is thicker, heavy with the scent of damp earth and water birds. By the time you reach the banks, the girls have already filled their jugs and are squatting in the shallows, chatting with a group of older women, washing sandals and rough-spun robes in the reeds. This is the river end of laundry, the informal wing, the working poor, the field workers, the ones who don't starch their linen, but still scrub with care. You hop onto a low rock and observe. A boy nearby is collecting floating pieces of discarded rope, muttering to himself about divine knots and omens in the foam. He ties one around his wrist and tosses the others into a basket made of reed and stubborn hope. One of the women sees you. She smiles. Ah, river sister, she says. Come to check the water for the palace? You blink. She nods solemnly. Good. They listen to you more than they do us. You watch her wash a long strip of fabric, her hands red from soapwort and scrubbing. Each movement is practiced, sure, full of a rhythm she probably learned from her grandmother. A young boy tries to skip a stone across the water, but throws too low. The stone plunks with a disappointing splash. He sighs, spots you, and narrows his eyes. You think you can skip better? You meow in a way that could mean yes, or possibly just, don't test me, child. He picks another stone. This one skips 3 times. He beams. You flick your tail, granting a rare nod of approval. He will tell this story for years. After a while, the girls shoulder their jugs again and begin the walk back, now heavier, quieter, more focused. Water is precious, and even laughter must yield to its weight. You walk with them a while, keeping to the shadows. By the time you return to the courtyard, the sun has shifted again, no longer overhead, but beginning its long, lazy lean toward the west. The laundry workers are folding now. Stacks of tunics, rolls of bandages, ceremonial headcloths, all laid in tidy piles, like sleeping birds. One of the scribes, the one who insists linen should be soft, not stiff, has returned. He carries a small box and a scroll. He sits beside the starch pot and opens the box with exaggerated care. Inside, tiny clay tokens. Each one has a mark pressed into it. A symbol, a number, a scratched note of ownership. Laundry tokens. He begins to match them to garments, muttering to himself. This one is for the temple attendant. This one. Why is there a fish here? Who uses a fish as a symbol for laundry? You pad over and look. It is indeed a fish. sloppily carved, probably by someone in a hurry or with very wet hands. You sniff the token. It smells like fish. He sighs. Well, that solves that. He places it on a folded robe that smells faintly of river salt and prayers. Beside him, Neff folds a tunic with such precision it could be displayed in a shrine. She notices you and gestures to a small bundle by her feet. Your usual. You approach. It's a wrap of cooled fish, wrapped in lotus leaves. Someone's scraps, but still fresh. A tribute. You eat it in slow, measured bites. Paws tucked neatly beneath you. All around, the day's work begins its descent toward rest. The linen lines are lighter. The basins are empty. The starch pot has cooled. The sun bleeds orange now, and even the flies have stopped buzzing. And from somewhere deep in the palace, a bell rings, soft, faint, meant for ears like yours. The princess is calling. You finish the last bite of fish and rise, licking your paw once, twice, 3 times, for luck. Then you walk back through the courtyard, the scent of soap and starch trailing behind you like a cloak. You pass beneath the carved archway that separates the laundry courtyard from the inner palace. Pause whispering against the stone as you slip from one world into another. The laundry workers stay behind with their drying racks and starch pots, folding and murmuring, unaware of the more delicate drama unfolding deeper within the walls. The princess's bell rings only for you, and when you answer, it is always with the quiet dignity of someone who doesn't rush, only arrives. You find her in the antechamber of her writing room, sitting cross-legged on a cushion woven with purple thread. Her hair is braided back, her fingers stained with ink. She's wearing a light robe that smells faintly of rose oil and reed ash. The scroll beside her is open, halfway translated. Her cat-shaped ink jar, your likeness, of course, sits by her elbow. She looks up as you enter and smiles. There, you are. You hop onto the ledge beside her and begin grooming your right paw. She doesn't mind the lack of conversation. The two of you have passed hours in this way, her translating, you napping or observing, occasionally stealing bits of dried fish from her plate. Today, she seems troubled. She picks up the scroll, reads a line, then frowns. It says the priests of Bastet used starch as a purification agent, she says, almost to herself. For the robes of the cat keepers, she glances sideways at you. That's your people, I suppose. You blink once, then twice. She unrolls the scroll farther. Her brow furrows. There's something odd here. Look, she points to a line near the bottom, where the ink curves into a more hurried hand. It suggests a starch recipe that's impossible. Lotus, fig sap, goat's milk, and ground obsidian. No one would do that. It would make the cloth stiff as armor. She leans back and sighs. Unless you curl up, pressing your side against the cool stone. You've seen that look before. The one that means she's about to do something inconvenient in the name of history. A moment later, she's on her feet. She gathers the scroll, tucks it into a linen sleeve, and adjusts her belt. We're going to the archive, and then to the temple. You rise, stretch, and follow. The palace is quiet now, not still. There's always movement. but hushed. Servants glide past, heads bowed, the scent of baked millet bread wafting from the kitchens. A gardener waters the basil plants by moonlight. Somewhere, a musician plucks at a lyre, the notes soft and uncertain. You walk beside the princess, your steps nearly in time with hers. At the entrance to the archive, a guard nods and steps aside. He doesn't speak. He doesn't need to. Everyone knows who you are. Inside, the archive smells of old papyrus, cedar oil, and the cool dust that clings to knowledge. Scrolls are stacked in careful rows, each labeled in the neat script of generations of palace scribes. The princess walks directly to a section marked with a carved lotus bloom, the section on textiles. You jump onto the sorting table and settle in as she pulls scroll after scroll, muttering to herself. Cloth from Nubia? No. Weaving records from the Third Dynasty? No. Then she stops. Here. She unrolls a scroll, bound with faded green ribbon. Her eyes scan the lines. It's here again. That same mixture. Fig sap, goat's milk, ground obsidian, lotus. It says the result was sacred linen, used only in the burial rites of the most honored dead. She reads on. It stiffened the cloth to stand upright, like a statue, like a guardian. You watch her face shift, fascination folding into realization, then into a strange sort of concern. She rolls up the scroll. We have to go to the temple. You jump down and land silently beside her. The Temple of Bastet sits on the edge of the inner city, half shadowed beneath rows of date palms and stone lions. It's not a large temple, not compared to the ones for Ra or Amun, but it has its own energy, quiet, watchful, cat-like. You've been there before. The priestesses don't question your presence. They open the gate for the princess without a word, offering her a lamp and bowing just slightly deeper when they see you beside her. Inside, the temple is cool and filled with the soft echoes of dripping water. There are offerings, small fish, polished shells, plates of hair left in baskets. You smell something else too. Starch, fresh. You follow your nose into the back chamber, where an elder priestess tends to a pile of folded robes. Each one is impossibly white, pressed flat as bark, edges sharpened with some unknown solution. The princess bows. I need to ask about a recipe. The priestess inclines her head, gesturing to the basin beside her. In it, water cloudy with crushed lotus, something sticky, and a faint sheen of iridescent powder. Ground. Obsidian? The princess asks. The priestess nods. Symbolic. For protection. And the stiffness. Not just for shape. For memory. So the robe remembers the body after it's gone. You step closer. One robe is laid out on a rack to dry. Its pleats arranged like sun rays. It smells familiar, like old starch and something older, something sacred. You hop onto the edge of the basin and look in. Your reflection stares back, warped slightly by the swirl of lotus. The princess whispers, So, it wasn't just laundry, it was armor. For the soul. You purr once. Low. The priestess looks at you, then back at the princess. She understands. The priestess says, You always did. You curl beside the basin, the scent of starch and sacred things wrapping around. You like a second skin. Outside, the night thickens. Inside, the robes remember. You wake beneath a flickering oil lamp, your fur scented faintly with lotus, starch, and moonlight. The temple of Bastet hums softly in its bones, an old hum, one that doesn't need candles or choirs or trumpets to be heard. Just stone, just breath, just memory. The princess is still speaking with the priestess, voices pitched low like wind rustling linen. They talk about rites, robes, and what's forgotten between the lines of old scrolls. You rise, stretch long, and slip out without a sound. You know where you're going. Down the steps, past the shaded side of the spice garden, toward the river, but not to the banks, to the boats, the laundry boats. Most people forget they exist. Flat papyrus, raftered skiffs, lashed together with palm rope, anchored just offshore, bobbing like quiet turtles in the dark. You hop onto the first one with a soft thump, your paws catching on the rough mat, laid out to keep garments from sliding overboard. The boat creaks gently beneath you. It smells of riverweed, fish scales, and soap foam. 3 workers are here, older women with thick arms and voices like cracked pots. They hum as they wash, their voices weaving together like strands of wet rope. One of them notices you and chuckles. Well, if it isn't our inspector. You settle on a coiled rope, gaze steady. She dips a woven basket into the river and pours water over a mound of tunics stained with temple ash. Another woman grinds a clump of saltwort against a board with her elbow. The third is folding, a gesture so practiced it's nearly ritual. These boats aren't for royal garments or ceremonial starching. These are for cloths used in daily labor, sleeves worn thin from carrying bricks, head wraps soaked in field sweat, tunics streaked with the dust of grain barns and pottery kilns. And yet, they're washed with reverence, not as performance, but as practice, because the fabric is tired, because people deserve clean skin, even if their names are never carved into tombs. You watch as a woman lifts a sheet from a clay pot filled with vinegar and lemon oil. She wrings it out slowly, her fingers tracing the edges like she's checking for dreams caught in the fibers. Then she passes it to the folder, who lays it flat and begins the slow ritual of smoothing it out with her palms. They speak little, only nods, only the occasional murmur about the current. You leap lightly to the second raft, where a girl, not more than 12, is struggling to keep a tub balanced against the gentle sway. She's trying not to spill her mixture. River water, salt, a touch of sweet oil, and, by the smell of it, marsh mint. You settle beside her, curling your tail close. She glances at you, then at the tub, then back at you. Will you stay till I finish? You blink slowly. She dips a cloth in the solution and begins to scrub. It's not perfect. She uses too much wrist, not enough shoulder. The rhythm is off, but she's trying. She hums a melody her mother probably sang. You don't know the words, but it smells of lullabies. By the time she's done, the cloth is only half clean, but her hands are shaking, and her eyes are hopeful. You give a small purr. That's all she needs. She smiles, lips chapped and teeth crooked, and lays the cloth to dry on a low wooden rack that smells of mildew and thyme. Behind her, the older women begin to pull in the ropes. The boat will float for a few more hours, drifting with the tide, letting the garments dry in the breeze and sun. Before the long row home, you rise and leap back to shore. The mud welcomes your paws like an old joke you've heard too many times, but still enjoy. Back up the bank, past sleeping carts and pots still warm from rice, you weave through the back gate of the palace, a slit so narrow only cats and forgotten ideas can pass through. Inside, the air smells different, not bad, just full, full of starch. Someone's cooking it again. You follow the scent past the fig wall, beneath the silver lanterns hung for festival days, and into the west side courtyard, used only when the moon is new. There, you see her, the princess. She sits cross-legged beside a shallow basin, one hand resting on the edge, the other slowly tipping a length of fabric in a silvery solution. It glows faintly in the dark. She sees you. I went to the oldest scrolls, she says, almost whispering. They don't call it starching. Not really. They call it binding the air. You tilt your head. She dips the cloth again. It was meant to hold things in place, not just pleats, thoughts, prayers, names. The cloth drips as she lifts it. She spreads it carefully across a black stone slab, the kind used in temple courtyards. She smooths it with a flat paddle carved from ebony. It's too stiff, she murmurs. I didn't get the balance right. You walk up to the slab, place one paw on the corner of the cloth. She watches. You press. The cloth gives. Just a little. She smiles. Good enough, huh? You curl beside the slab, tucking your tail around your paws. And she leans back, hands stained with starch, face turned to the rising moon. Together, you wait for the cloth to dry. You wake to applause. Not loud, not wild, just a smattering of cheerful clapping from the courtyard as the first rays of sunlight stretch over the edge of the palace roof. The laundry courtyard is already alive with morning voices. Someone's dropped a jar. Someone else is chasing a goat that's stolen a sleeve, and now wears it like a sash of office. You roll over on the warm stone beside the drying cloth, the one the princess left to stiffen overnight. It crackles faintly as it moves, the starch dried smooth, holding the fabric's folds like whispered secrets pressed into place. You stand, arch your back, and slink down into the movement of the morning. A reed flute plays somewhere near the water stairs. Birds argue over crumbs beside the granary. You pass the ceremonial pools, where two temple boys are scrubbing their sandals with wet grit and expressions of profound suffering. But what draws your attention is the competition beginning at the far end of the garden. Soapwort, foot races. You've seen them before. They're unofficial, naturally. The head laundress would pretend she's never heard of them, but every week or so, when the sky is clear and someone's uncle has brought in fresh soapwort from the swamps beyond the canal, the workers strip to their tunics, oil their feet, and race along the whetstones to see who can wring out the longest, sheet by foot pressure alone. It's ridiculous, and also a near-religious event for everyone involved. You approach at the same time as a sleepy baker boy bearing a tray of sesame rounds for the spectators. He sees you, stops, and immediately offers you the best one. You ignore it, but he leaves it anyway. The rules of the foot races are simple. 2 teams, one enormous sheet of linen, soaked in soapwort and water, one long slab of stone. Each team takes one end of the cloth. They must walk, stomp, and slide their way to the middle, while twisting and pressing the fabric with their feet, wringing it as they go. First to the knot in the center wins. Today, the champions from the granary yard face off against the weavers from the south wall. You settle on the observation mat laid out for you. Someone's even placed a fig leaf beneath it for extra comfort. Appropriate, considering you are the sole judge. The signal is given. 2 sharp claps, and they begin. There's immediate chaos. Feet slip. Soap flies. One girl goes down in a splash of suds and dignity. The granary boys gain an early lead. Toes pointed, heels grinding the fabric like millstones. The weavers aren't far behind. Their smallest racer spins full circle in place, turning the cloth like a corkscrew. The crowd roars. You remain perfectly still. Then, a twist, literally. One of the granary racers tangles in the sheet, trips, and accidentally somersaults directly into the soap pot. There is a moment of stunned silence. Then everyone, including you, blinks, then laughs. Even the head laundress, watching from the doorway, with her arms crossed and her mouth stern, lets out one breathy chuckle before vanishing again into the starching shed. The race concludes in a mass of wet feet, foam, and fabric. No clear winner, but plenty of bruised pride and clean ankles. After the race, someone sets out pomegranate slices and sesame honey cubes. You walk through the crowd, collecting praise and offerings like a minor deity at a harvest festival. You ignore most of it, accepting only a sliver of honey from the girl who brought you fish last week. She knows the etiquette. Your paws sticky with sugar. You wander back toward the shaded walkway that leads to the storage room for sacred laundry, ceremonial garments, old festival robes, and the infamous belt of 50 knots, which no one's dared untangle since the last eclipse. It's here you find something strange. One of the storage chests has been opened. Nothing violent, no breakage, just open. Inside, a robe is missing. Not a common one. The 4-hued robe of incense hours. A ceremonial piece woven with golden thread, dyed in stripes of blue, red, ochre, and green to represent the cycles of temple incense. It's used only during high ritual once a season, or during funerals of very high-ranking priestesses. It's gone. You sniff the edge of the chest. Faint traces of fig, soap, papyrus. No alarm, but definitely not protocol. You circle the chest once, hop atop it, and wait. Sure enough, the princess appears 10 minutes later. She sees the chest, stops. Someone's taken it. You blink. She kneels, inspecting the lock. No scratches, no marks. She murmurs, then they had access. Or they had help. Her voice is tight, tired. You leap down beside her and nudge her hand with your nose. She sighs and scratches behind your ears. All right, I won't panic, but we'll need to speak to the starchers. She rises. You both walk back into the light of mid-morning. The smell of soapwort still thick in the air. The races have ended. Workers are cleaning. A dog is being shooed from the fig tree with a broom. Nothing looks out of place. But you know better. A robe like that doesn't walk off on its own. Unless, of course, someone gave it feet. You slink through the eastern colonnade, tail low, eyes narrow. The princess walks beside you, quiet now. Her sandals make a soft thip-thip across the sandstone. She's changed into a plain tunic, off-white, unmarked, so she won't draw attention in the workyard. But even like this, people look, not at her, at you. The laundry workers freeze mid-fold. The starchers pause their stirring. A young man, holding a damp sash, sets it down with exaggerated care, as though placing a baby owl onto a pile of scrolls. You leap onto a low basin and sit, directly in the sunbeam. The princess clears her throat. I need to ask about the robe of incense hours. Gasps, small ones, covered by coughs. One of the starchers, a tall man with a missing thumb and excellent posture, glances at his neighbor, who very suddenly becomes interested in a smudge on her sleeve. The head starcher steps forward. Her name is Toddy. She is older than anyone ever admits, and has never once flinched in the face of vinegar, in the eye, scalded fingertips, or small ceremonial fires caused by excessive myrrh soaking. She bows. Lo, we saw it 2 days ago, she says, folded in the cedar chest. Perfect condition. And now? The princess asks. Gone, Toddy says, with the full gravity of a cracked amphora. Not by error. You tilt your head slightly. The princess notices. Do you suspect someone? Toddy's gaze flicks to the eastern storeroom. Then she whispers, the priest, the one with the perfume requests. The princess nods slowly. The one who always insists on cedar-rubbed hems. Toddy nods back. He asked about obsidian starch 2 days ago. Wanted to know if it made linen stronger. The princess's mouth tightens. You leap from the basin, landing in a small puff of flour someone spilled near the bread cart. White paw prints follow you as you lead her through the arches and toward the outer wing of the temple. This is where the perfumes are, mixed, and where pigeons, too many pigeons, nest in the rafters, cooing their private gossips into the warm air. Inside, the chamber is cool, sweet-smelling, humming with quiet work. Jars line every surface. Sandalwood, juniper, blue lotus, cassia bark, myrrh crushed and stored in bits of linen, like sacred cookies. The priest is here, tall, bony, wearing a robe far too fine for scent mixing. He turns as you enter, hands stained amber from resin. He bows to the princess. To you, he only nods. A mistake. The princess speaks gently. A robe is missing. He blinks. Many robes are laundered. You sit beside a jar labeled bitter almond. Begin grooming your paw. Slowly, the princess tries again. The incense hour robe. The priest looks away. Only for a second. But enough. I heard it was due for repairs, he says. No such order was filed. The princess replies. There's a pause. Then he says, too quickly, it may have been misfiled. I can check. You stand. Walk to a low shelf. There, beneath a folded cloth meant for covering scent jars, you find a sliver of thread. Red, gold, green, striped. You flick it toward the princess with your paw. She bends, picks it up. looks at the priest. He closes his eyes. Why? She asks. He exhales. The high priestess is dying. Her robes are plain. The incense hour robe was meant for her funeral, but it will not be approved in time. Because she's not in the right order? The princess says quietly. She's served 40 years, he says. She deserves silk and smoke and color. You blink. This complicates things. But the princess only nods. Next time, she says softly, ask. He bows. Forgive me. You turn, tail brushing the edge of a jar, labeled temple bark, and exit without fanfare. The princess follows. Neither of you says anything until the warm courtyard air hits your whiskers again. She meant to wear it in death, she says. A robe made to measure time. You glance toward the west, where the sun sits fat and heavy above the library. Dome. Time. Funny thing. You pad back toward the laundry yard. Workers are folding again, singing softly, a melody you know. One with no words, just the rhythm of linen and hands. As you pass the starching station, someone offers you a small sliver of grilled fish. You ignore it, for now. There's a new scent in the air. Perfume, but not temple perfume. This is lighter, sweeter, familiar. You turn the corner and find her, your friend from the bread line, the girl with the chalk-stained robes and the quiet way of humming when she's nervous. She's kneeling beside a flat tray covered in wet linen squares. You sniff one. She's writing on them, or painting, tiny symbols made from crushed iris and water. She sees you, smiles. This is my secret, she whispers. Invisible prayers. When the cloth dries, the ink fades. But when the robe is worn, the prayer is still there. You sit beside her and watch, one square at a time. She paints a wish. Let their burdens be light. Let their feet walk cool paths. Let their linen never chafe. You close your eyes. This is laundry too. Not just soap and water and starch, but care, memory, protection, and hope. You curl beside the tray, head on paws, as her brush moves again, and the linen dries under the breath of a setting sun. You wake to the scent of resin and spice, faint but unmistakable, the kind of scent that lingers in temple halls, in the folds of funerary robes, and in the bandages of the not quite dead. You open one eye, still curled beside the prayer linen girl's tray, and see that she's gone. So has the linen, vanished without a sound, but the scent remains, and it draws you. You rise, shake the dust from your fur, and follow the trail through a side gate, rarely used by anyone who isn't a priest, a scribe, or a cat. The stone path is lined with carved columns, each etched with lotus and falcon symbols, worn soft by time. Pigeons roost above, silent in the early dusk. The mortuary wing of the palace complex sits at the far edge of the grounds, nestled beneath a curved wall of white plaster and silence. You pass through its gate unnoticed. You always do. Inside, the air is different. Not dead, just paused, like everything is waiting. A group of attendants kneel beside a central basin, washing narrow linen strips in a mixture of vinegar, natron, and something sweet you can't place. Honey? No. Maybe fig syrup. The bandages must not only preserve the body, they must please the gods, who unwrap it on the other side. You move quietly through the chamber. This isn't the main embalming room, not the one with oils and jars and the tools no one speaks of. This is the laundry, the staging place, the quiet in between, where cloth becomes memory. One woman lifts a strip of linen from the basin, lets the excess water drip off, and then holds it to the light. A whisper escapes her lips. I wonder if they'll remember her laugh. Another, folding a longer sheet, responds without looking up. They will. If she wore this, you perch on a low bench, tail curled, watching as they fold and press, fold and press. Each bandage laid with deliberate care. Some are narrow, for fingers, others broad, for the chest or thighs. Some are twisted into ropes, meant to tie charms in place. In the far corner, a priestess hums, low, melodic, not quite a song. You've heard it before. It's the hymn of the middle path, the one sung when a body leaves the city for the field of reeds, but hasn't yet crossed the last canal. The body is not in the room, not yet, but it's close. You jump down and slip into the hallway, where two guards stand stiffly outside a tall wooden door. They part for you. Of course they do. And you pad inside. The chamber is dim, lit only by a brazier and the soft flicker of polished copper mirrors catching the glow. On a low platform lies the woman. You remember her. She once fed you chicken from the temple kitchens. She never spoke above a whisper. She wore sandals made of palm fiber, so light they never made a sound on stone. Her face is calm, lips closed, hands folded, already wrapped from shoulders to feet in clean linen. Only her face remains. Beside her, the stolen robe, the incense hour robe. You walk slowly to its hem. The fabric is stiff from starch, but smooth to the touch. 4 colors ripple in the flickering light. Blue for morning, red for heat, gold for midday sun, green for the dusk prayers. The scent is familiar now. It was fig syrup and cedar and lotus water and something else. Ink, faint symbols along the inner collar, tiny prayers written in the girl's hand, invisible to anyone who doesn't know to look. You curl up beside the robe. A final inspection. You close your eyes. When you wake again, they are lifting the body, gently, no hurry. The priestess sings the final verses of the hymn. The attendants place charms in her hands. An ankh, a carved fish, and a tiny lump of blue faience shaped like a cat. You squint at it. The resemblance is not flattering. They wrap her face slowly and place the robe over the outer linen, tucking its edges with precise folds. The color glows softly in the firelight. The prayers hidden beneath the fabric rest against her like breath. One of the guards moves forward to close the doors to the courtyard. You slip out before they do. Back into the hallway. Back into air not thick with endings. The stars are out now. The moon rides low and full. You pass the water basin where attendants rinse their hands after ceremony. One nods to you, whispers, "She's dressed like royalty now." You pause beside a basket of unused bandages. They smell clean. They smell like care. You press your face into them once, then walk on, past the starching room, now dark, past the perfume hall, closed tight, into the quiet heart of the palace, where even the fig trees sleep. You climb onto a ledge warmed by the day's sun, and curl. You don't dream of death, you dream of fabric, stiffened, blessed, carried gently to a boat, and of a robe that will never wrinkle again. Morning returns slowly, the way warm milk drips from a tilted bowl. You wake on your ledge to the sounds of soft sweeping, brooms whisking dust into clay pans, bare feet padding across flagstones, and someone humming the fig syrup song near the kitchens. The scent of damp linen and baking bread tells you everything you need to know. It's laundry sorting day. You leap down, your paws landing in a sunbeam exactly wide enough for a full stretch. A servant glances your way and quickly adjusts his path to avoid your tail. Wise, you allow him to pass unjudged. In the sorting yard, woven reed baskets cover nearly every flat surface. They're labeled in red ink on palm tags. Temple robes, priestly sandals, messenger cloths, headbands, festival sashes. The baskets are organized with a care that borders on holy. You slink between them, reading in your own way. Here is the messenger sash still stained with date juice. There, a priest's hem, smelling sharply of onions and cedar wood. And at the edge of the stack, ah yes, a crumpled tunic that reeks of donkey hair and bad decisions. You curl your lip. The princess arrives, not long after, holding a scroll and chewing on the end of a stylus. Her robe is clean but wrinkled, likely slept in. She pauses at the sight of the baskets, then kneels by the largest, marked unassigned. Inside are garments without tokens. This is a problem. Without a token, small clay tablets stamped with symbols, initials, or images. No one knows who owns what. The laundry system is precise, elegant, an empire of clean folds and correct returns. Unlabeled garments are chaos. The princess frowns. You hop onto the edge of the basket and sniff. The top item is a head wrap with an embroidered frog. She blinks. I know that frog. You tilt your head. It belongs to the grain measurer from the second granary. She once slipped me a melon seed. You purr softly. Information retrieved. She pulls the head wrap from the basket and ties a small reed tag to it. Frog, granary. She turns to the worker beside her. We're going to need a new system. The worker sighs. This happens after festival week. Everyone gets sweaty and swaps robes in the baths. The princess eyes the rest of the pile. One tunic smells faintly of river fish and jasmine. Another is stiff from dried beer. A third bears the telltale yellow tint of onion dye, a food seller's cloth. Likely, you walk past them, tail high, as if conducting a museum tour of forgotten scents. At the edge of the courtyard, a low table holds the tokens. Hundreds of them, small clay discs, some round, some square, a few cracked down the middle. Each bears a symbol pressed into it before firing. A reed, a lion, a basket, a loaf of bread. Some are simple pictograms. Others are more abstract. Combinations of symbols meant to represent names, positions, or functions. You hop onto the table, careful not to disturb them, and you wait. The princess notices She walks over. You want it to play the matching game? You blink once. She begins sorting tokens into neat rows. Animals in one, tools in another, food items in a third. She mutters to herself. This one's a fish. Probably the river inspector. This is that a leg? Who would choose a leg? You lean in, smell the fish token. No river mud. No soap. You sniff again. Lotus and fig. You walk back to the tunic. Pile. There, buried near the bottom, a robe with faint ink stains and a collar that's been chewed at the edge. Not river folk. Scribe. You meow. Short and decisive. The princess follows your gaze. That's the apprentice. The one who wrote prayers on linen. She lifts the robe, holds it to her chest. You're right. You saunter back to the token table and tap the leg token off the edge. It falls, breaks. 2 workers freeze in horror. But the princess just grins. She never claimed it anyway. Over the next hour, the yard becomes a living puzzle. You match smells and threads. The princess matches tokens and logic. Workers call out from every side. This one has a feather symbol. Whose token is the scorpion with wings? Someone's used the wrong starch again. This hem could cut a fig in half. At one point, you nap inside a basket of headbands. But even then, you listen. Eventually, the final garment is returned. The last token slotted into a little box for later firing, and the princess ties her stylus back into her belt. She stretches. Do you think anyone realizes how much laundry holds this palace together? You purr. Of course it does. Wars start because someone wore the wrong sash to a banquet. Peace is made over clean sheets and robes that smell of rose. The princess walks past you, trailing the scent of ink and starch, her sandals flapping softly. As you follow, a worker calls out, "We still haven't found the sash with the lion and fish tokens." The princess glances at you. You sniff. There, behind the curtain, a child is curled up beneath the fabric, clearly napping on the very sash in question, his face sticky with honey, the lion and fish tokens clutched in each fist. You sit beside him and begin grooming your paw. The princess sighs. I'll let him wake. Up first, the child wakes slowly, like dough rising in a warm kitchen, soft limbs stretching, fists still closed around the stolen tokens. He blinks up at the princess, and then at you. You stare, unimpressed. He offers the lion token in one hand, the fish in the other, an offering, maybe, a peace treaty. You lean in, sniff once, then give his forehead a brief, ceremonial lick. Truce accepted. The princess gently retrieves the tokens from his hands, and with a smile, sends him off with a folded slice of honey bread from her sash pouch. Where she got it is a mystery. You suspect she always has a bit hidden somewhere. Royal privilege. As the boy trots off, humming tunelessly and dragging the sash behind him like a pet snake, you return to the center of the courtyard. It's quieter now. The baskets are empty. The reed mats rinsed. Most of the workers are on break, shaded beneath fig trees, or dipping their feet into the edge of the temple's ceremonial pool. You hop onto a folded mat and sit, paws tucked neatly. Then you see her, the Starch girl, the one with the fig sap fingers and the habit of whispering to linen like it might whisper back. She's alone at the edge of the courtyard, dipping a cloth into a wide ceramic basin filled with something viscous and sweet-smelling. You move closer. She glances up, then down. It's the new formula, she whispers, inspired by the priest's mistake. She stirs the mixture. Lotus water, natron, a few drops of goat milk, and a pinch of something dark and glittering. You sniff. Obsidian, crushed so fine, it smells faintly metallic, like a temple bell just after ringing. I'm trying to make the cloth hold scent longer, she says, for travelers, so their robes still smell clean after 7 days on the road. She holds up a strip of fabric and lays it flat on a drying rack, smoothing it with the side of her palm. I added crushed lemongrass this time, she says. You think it's too much? You press your paw onto the cloth, then pull it back. It's slightly sticky, not unpleasant. The scent lingers, like something that's been waiting in a cedar chest for 1,000 years. She grins. I'll take that as a maybe. Across the courtyard, the head starcher calls out. The girl jumps slightly, bows to you, and trots away, leaving the cloth behind. You stay beside it, because something strange is happening. As the cloth dries, its stiffness doesn't fade. It deepens. It's not heavy, but it looks like it should be. The pleats hold better than they should, and as the wind stirs, the cloth doesn't move at all. You leap lightly onto the rack beside it. The smell of lemongrass, obsidian, and starch coils around you like an invisible robe. You close your eyes just for a moment. When you open them, the cloth is still there, still unmoving, still holding some secret. You leave it behind and slink back toward the palace steps, the sun now casting long slats of light across the courtyard, like stripes on a priest's robe. A commotion at the edge of the gardens draws your ear. The princess is kneeling in the grass, her face serious, in her hands a set of clay tokens that do not match anything from earlier. These are older, worn. One bears the mark of a now closed temple, another, a fish without fins. A gardener stands nearby, nervous. She found them in the ground, he says. While we were planting papyrus, the princess holds one up. This one hasn't been used in over 200 years. You slink closer and sniff the token. Dust, burnt starch, ink. You blink, once, twice, then leap onto the princess's knee and nudge her hand. She smiles. Guess what we're doing tonight? You already know. Digging through the forgotten laundry of history. Back inside the palace, she lays the tokens on a reed mat in her chamber. By lamplight, she examines the edges, worn smooth, cracked slightly, symbols etched in a style you haven't seen in many moons. You curl beside her. She speaks to you as she works. These tokens, they don't just mark ownership. They hold rank, permission, access. She lifts the fish without fins. This one belonged to a messenger, but the style suggests he wasn't palace staff. Maybe temple, maybe even foreign-born. She glances sideways at you. Some tokens were used to deliver robes as messages. You blink. She nods, eyes alight. Clothing as code. You yawn, but it's a thoughtful yawn. She pulls a scroll from her pile, an old one. The ink, barely legible. It lists robes by name. One robe of shadow linen, sent at dusk with no torch. She reads, delivered to gatekeeper of the third path. You lift your head. Gatekeeper, you've passed the gate at the edge of the old garden dozens of times. It's always shut. No one ever opens it. Not since the last full festival season. She notices your stare. Want to take a walk? Moments later, you're padding through moonlight, past the silent fig trees and the pond that smells faintly of frogs. The old gate sits crooked in its hinges, vines trailing across its latch. The princess holds up one token, a beetle carved into smooth clay. She presses it gently to the gate's lock. Nothing happens. She sighs. You walk forward and bat at the vines. They fall, and behind them, a second slot, smaller, shaped like a fish. The fish without fins. She slides it in. The gate creaks. Dust shakes free, and beyond, a staircase, spiraling down. The smell of starch and secrets follows you in. The staircase winds like a ribbon dropped by a distracted god. Uneven, narrow, worn soft in the middle, from generations of cautious feet. The air grows cooler with each step, drier too. The scent of limestone, mingling with something older. Dust, oil, ink faded past its prime. You walk just ahead of the princess, tail flicking side to side, ears alert. Your paw pads press silent patterns onto the stone, each step an ancient permission, granted without question. At the bottom, the passage opens into a small chamber lit by a single oil lamp left burning, possibly for centuries, possibly just relit by some discreet servant who remembers things others don't. Either way, the flame dances like it's trying not to laugh. The room is low-ceilinged, packed wall to wall with baskets, not empty ones, full, with robes, tunics, head wraps, all folded, all clean, but not labeled, not claimed. Each piece tied with a narrow strip of cloth, marked only by strange, faded symbols, far older than the tokens above. You sniff one, lotus sap and clay dust. The princess crouches beside a stack of robes. This isn't storage, she whispers. This is collection. You hop onto the nearest pile and let your weight press into the ancient linen. It doesn't yield. These robes are stiff, not from time or neglect, but from something else, intention. The princess reaches into one of the baskets and pulls out a child's wrap, embroidered with tiny falcons and a single pale star. This belonged to someone important, she says, but there's no name. You look around. Dozens, no, hundreds, of robes, all nameless, all folded as if still waiting to be returned. She speaks again. Some of these aren't styles we even use anymore. She pulls another. This one is dyed deep red and wrapped with a green cord you've only seen on temple processions meant to summon rain. You remember, one such procession ended with 10 workers soaked in vinegar. The princess lays the red robe down gently. She picks up a strip of binding cloth and traces the marks with her thumb. This script, I don't recognize it. You meow. Loud, once. She looks over. You've padded toward a low alcove carved into the back wall. Inside, a slab, flat, dark, and smooth as pressed oil. Not quite a bench, not quite a table. She kneels beside it, brushes off a film of dust. Beneath the grime is a carving, barely visible, a diagram of laundry, not a symbolic version, a literal one, a layout of the palace's ancient laundry system, its basins, starch, pots, drying lines, and next to each one, symbols, tokens. Some match the ones used today, some don't. She leans back, eyes wide. This was the old system, she says, before the palace moved, before the Starch Guild even existed. You blink, then sniff. A scent you haven't encountered in hours. Fresh starch, but not from above. From behind the wall, she presses her hand to the stone. Listens. Nothing. Then again, just barely audible. Scrape. A whisper. A fold. You paw the edge of the floor. There, at the base of the slab, a hairline seam. She reaches for her stylus, wedges it between the stones, and with a soft grunt, lifts. A square panel rises on hidden hinges, revealing stairs. Again, you sigh through your nose. More stairs. This is why cats nap, for this exact reason. The princess lights a second lamp and begins to descend. This time, it smells not of dust, but of heat, of steam, of linen pulled tight against wood. At the bottom, the light glows brighter, reflected off something metallic. You enter a room unlike any other in the palace. Not ancient, still warm, still in use. Starching trays line the walls, but not the clay basins of above. These are bronze, wide, shallow, polished, set over stones still warm from fire. There are no servants, no scribes, just silence and cloth, dozens of them, drying without lines, hanging mid-air as if frozen, stiff as parchment, shaped into gestures. One shaped like arms folded, another like a robe in mid-sway. One, eerily, like someone bowing. Each robe is starched to hold a single motion, a captured moment. The princess breathes out. These aren't laundry. She walks to the center of the room, where a robe stands upright on its own, as though worn by an invisible figure. She whispers, "These are records, not scrolls, not carvings. Laundry, frozen in time." She circles one shaped like a child's wrap, held in the curve of a cradle. These garments are stories. You curl beside the nearest robe and blink slowly. The starch mixture here isn't just for stiffness, it's preservation. She picks up a jar from the shelf, reads the label aloud. River starch, for motion. Another, temple starch, for stillness. And a third, memory starch, for unspoken names. She opens the last jar. Inside, something that glitters like sugar and smells like ink left to dry in sunlight. "This is what the priest wanted," she says softly. "The one who took the incense hour robe." You leap onto the bench and rest your head on your paws. This place isn't for cleaning. It's for keeping. Not just garments, but what they meant. Who they touched. Who they lost. The princess stands still for a long time, then says, "We have to bring someone else down here." You raise one ear. "Not today," she adds quickly. "Just someone. Eventually. Before it's forgotten." You purr once. Approval. But first you both sit. You, beside the cradle cloth. Her, beside the robe. Midbow, the air hums faintly with starch and thyme, and the room holds its breath. Later, how much later, you can't say. You're walking again, slowly, quietly, up the same spiral staircase you descended, now feeling like a thread reeling its way back into a spool. The princess carries the jar, labeled memory starch, tucked beneath one arm. Her face is unreadable, the kind of expression usually worn by statues who've seen too much and blinked far too little. You, however, feel oddly refreshed. That room, beneath everything, didn't smell like death. It smelled like remembering. Back in the courtyard, the sun is high, the shadows sharp, and the starching trays are alive with action again. Workers beat water from thick ceremonial cloths, shake folds into tunics, and argue over whose batch of laundry smells more dignified. Someone has spilled starch again. A child has stepped in it. There is now a small starch footprint making its way around the courtyard like an escaped scroll annotation. The head starcher is not amused. The princess watches the chaos from the archway, then slips the memory starch jar into a basket by the wall, covering it with an old festival sash. You leap onto the rim of the basket and sit guard. That's when you spot something strange. A tunic hanging from the central line. Crisp, white, seemingly ordinary, but not moving. The breeze plays at the others. This one remains still, unnaturally. So you pad closer, ears forward. It's not freshly laundered. It's preserved. You hop to the line and press your paw to the hem. The fabric is stiff, not with starch, but with the weight of something unsaid. The princess approaches. Another one. You mow. Lo, she touches the cloth. Someone's been experimenting. She glances around. No one is watching. She unpins the tunic and folds it carefully, placing it beside the hidden jar. Then, quietly, she says, I think someone else remembers the room. You both sit for a moment, not speaking. Then a scribe runs past with a handful of scrolls and a panic in his breath. Festival laundry is missing. The head starcher shouts from across the yard. It's in the basin, you dung-eared fig eater. A chorus of laughter follows. You blink, content. Normalcy is a strange kind of perfume, best noticed in its absence. Later, as the sky turns the color of overripe dates, the princess begins copying something from memory. She's seated beside the pool now, her feet just skimming the surface. You lie on the scroll she's not using. She lets you. Her stylus scratches softly, recording each starch formula she found in the chamber. River starch, temple starch, motion starch, memory starch, even one labeled only for forgiveness. She underlines that one twice, then adds a note. Test in the west courtyard basin, midday heat. You watch her work, not because you understand scrolls, but because you understand rhythm, the way paws move over stone, the way ink smells when you press your nose too close, the way her brows furrow, just so when she's balancing memory against curiosity. She pauses, looks at you. Do you think any of those robes belonged to cats? You blink slowly. She smirks. There was one shaped, like someone mid-pounce. You stretch and flick your tail. Interpret as you will. From the temple side of the wall comes the sound of a bell, not a call to prayer. Too soft for that. A summoning. You recognize it. The Starch girl is calling for the princess. You follow. In the back room, a dozen garments hang stiff and drying, but one is unlike the rest. It's folded, not hung, pressed, flat, wrapped in 2 layers of reed matting, and tied with a string dipped in something dark. The girl looks up. I tried the new formula, she says. Memory starch. On purpose. The princess kneels beside the folded robe and unties the string. Inside, a plain tunic. But it smells like old sugar, ink, smoke from last year's incense burning. The scent of a story half told. I found it in a pile of discarded robes, the girl explains. I didn't know who it belonged to, but it felt like it wanted to be remembered. The princess presses a hand to the cloth. The room goes still. You lie beside the robe, your tail touching the edge, and in the quiet, you hear, not a voice, but a presence, a memory shaped like a robe. Someone laughed in this tunic. Someone wept in it. Someone reached for a fig and missed. Someone stitched the hem while humming the sun to sleep. The princess speaks so softly, it barely counts as speech. It belonged to my brother. The Starch girl steps back. I didn't know. You weren't meant to. The princess replies. No one talks about him. She gathers the robe into her arms, holds it for a while, then stands. Let's take it to the chamber. You lead the way. The sun is dipping now, shadows stretching like sleepy cats across the stone. At the gate, she lifts the token with the beetle, then the fish. The door opens. Again, you all descend. Princess, Starch girl, you, carrying memory. The staircase swallows the sounds of the outside world. 1 step, 2 steps, then 30 more. Every footfall, every soft scrape of sandal on stone feels measured, like the path itself is aware of what's being carried. The robe, folded, wrapped, held close against the princess's chest. And not just any robe, her brother's. You hadn't known him, not truly, only in the faint scent left behind in his scrolls, the worn corners of the mats he used, the slightly cracked whistle he carved to summon cats that no longer came. The Starch girl says nothing. She just follows. Her hands are folded, not in prayer, but in readiness. She doesn't know what she'll do when they reach the chamber, but she knows it matters. At the bottom, the hidden starching room welcomes you again. Quiet, warm, lit by memory and a single low flame. You pad forward, first, circling the central bench. The robes here remain unchanged, still suspended in time, the one shaped like a bow, the one like a cradle, and now, soon, one more. The princess kneels by the empty bronze basin at the far end, lays the robe gently in its center. The Starch girl opens the jar. The memory starch catches the light as it pours. A faint shimmer, more like mist than fluid. It coats the cloth without soaking, without drowning it. It holds. As the scent rises, sweet ink, fig, and something else. Your ears twitch. Laughter may be just an echo, or maybe the room recognizes what's being offered. The girl adds 2 drops of lotus, 1 drop of vinegar. She steps back. The princess takes a flat cedar paddle and begins to press the robe, not harshly, with reverence, not to flatten, but to remember. Each motion says, I remember your walk. I remember how your robe bunched at the waist when you ran. I remember you left ink on your cuffs every time you wrote your name. She presses the fabric until it holds, then lifts it. The robe stands upright, empty, full. The girl exhales. The princess closes her eyes. You walk around it once, your tail brushing the hem. No one speaks for a long time. When she finally does, the princess whispers, "He would have liked this room." The girl asks, "What was he like?" She smiles. Curious, messy, always late to morning prayers. But he made everyone feel seen. She walks to the shelf and places the empty jar beside the others. Then she does something unusual. She opens a small niche in the wall, a narrow shelf used, perhaps long ago, for scrolls. From her belt pouch, she removes a small clay token, a reed, and a curl of ink. His. She places it in the niche beside the robe. Just in case someone comes looking, you curl up beside the robe's base, where the starch has dried into a quiet stiffness, and rest your head on your paws. You're not sleeping, just remembering. Later, the three of you ascend the stairs again, this time slower, softer. At the top, the princess closes the gate, wipes the edge of the stone clean with her sleeve, not to hide it, but to start fresh. Outside, the sun has set, and lanterns flicker along the outer garden. You can hear the soft strum of a lyre near the fig wall, and the scent of sesame cakes wafts from the kitchen. Life continues, but the robe is there now, and so is the memory. The next day, a new robe appears in the main courtyard, hung gently, starched lightly, smelling faintly of lemongrass and something else. The starch girl's work. You inspect it. The pleats are even. The hems whisper prayers. You approve. The princess returns to her scrolls, but now she draws starch formulas into the margins, beside notes on diplomacy and temple finance. A week passes, then two, then the festival arrives. The palace is filled with music, bright silks, guests, food, and chaos. Scribes run with folded tokens. Workers trip over rugs. Even the fig tree blooms early, as if to join the celebration. You watch it all, but you think about the chamber beneath and the robe that stands without a wearer. One night during the festival's final song, you pad to the basket where the memory starch jar was hidden. It's gone, replaced by a different jar. You sniff it. Motion starch. You blink slowly. Someone else has remembered. You curl up atop the token box, close your eyes, and listen to the rustling sound of robes, moving in time with old music. Festival weekends, not with a bang, but with a long exhale, the kind you let out only after the last guest has left, the last lyre string has snapped, and someone's finally swept the fig skins off the palace steps. You rise late that morning, stretching in a shaft of warm light that cuts through the corridor like a golden ribbon. Everything smells faintly of perfume and exhaustion. The princess finds you beneath the south portico, half buried in a pile of discarded festival sashes. She's chewing dried lotus root and holding a wax tablet in one hand, its surface half scribbled with to-do items, and at least one tiny doodle of what may be a cat in royal headdress. Too many dancers, she mutters, then sighs. Not enough water jars. You blink at her. She nods. Exactly. Together, you walk to the courtyard. The Starch girl is already there, kneeling by the central basin. She looks up, face flushed and hair tied in a crooked knot, and points to a square of fabric floating oddly in the water. I didn't put this here. The princess kneels. The cloth is fine, royal even, but old. The kind of linen used by high scribes 3 dynasties ago. Its edge is embroidered not in thread, but in pale blue ink that's almost invisible unless the light hits just so. She lifts it carefully. Inside, wrapped tightly, is a scroll. She unrolls it slowly. It reads, "For the ones who fold what others forget, for those who starch not only cloth, but memory." We kept what history dropped. There's no signature, just a single pressed seal at the bottom. A circle with a cat, a fish, and a star. You tap the seal with your paw. The Starch girl swallows. "That's not any known scribe mark." "No," says the princess softly. "It isn't." She rises and wraps the scroll in the same linen. But someone knew. The day continues, sluggish with post-festival fatigue. Servants nap where they shouldn't. A goat escapes again and eats half a sandal. Somewhere, someone burns a batch of incense strong enough to make half the courtyard sneeze in unison. But beneath the slow chaos, a quiet question begins to form. Who else knows? That night, the princess returns to the starch chamber. You follow, of course, but this time, you're not alone. 4 others descend with you, chosen by a whispered invitation and a bowl of honey cakes left in just the right spot. The Starch girl, a temple scribe, an older linen folder who hasn't spoken aloud in 3 years, but hums like wind through reeds, and a servant boy who once wrote a poem on a tunic, hem so beautiful the laundress refused to wash it. They enter without question. They see the robes, and they understand. Each selects a robe, not to wear, to read, to feel. The servant boy touches one shape, like a robe mid-spin, and his face folds into something like laughter, like grief. The linen folder hums louder. The princess walks to the center and places the scroll beside the bow-shaped robe. No one speaks, but you can feel it. The chamber has grown, not in size, in memory. You curl beside a flat robe, folded like a letter, and rest your chin on its hem. It smells like wind, like a journey never taken. When they leave, the light is low, the moon is rising, and someone, maybe the princess, maybe someone else, has tucked a new jar into the shelf, a smaller one. It reads, "For those not remembered, but felt." A week later, robes begin appearing in public spaces, not worn, not folded, but displayed, near doorways, on ledges, in alleys, between buildings. One shaped like someone reaching, one folded like arms embracing nothing, one hung upside down, caught in the motion of falling. The messages are quiet, but unmistakable. Some see it as art, some as tribute, others simply as some strange starch thing. But you know better. You watch as the starch girl leaves small linen scraps under benches, each with symbols that vanish as they dry. You see the scribe copying forgotten names into hidden hems. The princess cataloging starch types in the margins of official scrolls. You nap beside a robe that never existed, and still it holds warmth. Each night, Someone leaves fresh water in the corner of the hidden chamber, not for the workers, for the robes, or perhaps for the memories they're holding, as if memory could drink, as if it needed to. You start waking earlier now. Just before sunrise, you walk the courtyard, inspect the basins, nod to the tokens, because you know laundry isn't about cleanliness, it's about continuity. Someone wore that robe, someone folded it, someone returned it, or didn't. Someone wept over it, someone danced in it, and now someone remembers. Because of starch, because of cloth, because of you. You curl on a mat as the sun begins to rise, and the first worker steps into the yard, yawning and holding a robe like it might sing if she listens closely enough. The heat arrives gently this morning, like a cup of warm milk left near your paw. You blink into the light filtering through the reed screens, watching it dance across a robe pinned high above the courtyard. The linen flutters, not from wind, but from something quieter, maybe memory, maybe gratitude. You stretch, your joints creak slightly, not from age, but from repetition. This courtyard has become a kind of orbit. Each robe, each basin, each bowl of starch, a tiny planet you've patrolled 100 times over. But today, something's different. The princess stands by the central mat, speaking with someone unfamiliar, a traveler, judging by the dust clinging to their sandals and the frayed edge of their satchel. They're pointing to a set of symbols on a scrap of cloth. You pad closer. The symbols are faint, faded ink, older script, but you recognize one. Fish, drawn without fins. The traveler speaks softly. My grandmother told me this cloth belonged to her aunt. She wore it once, just once, to a temple dance. After that, it vanished. The princess studies it. She glances at you. You meow. Once. The starch girl appears, summoned by the sound. She looks at the scrap, touches it gently. Memory starch, she says. The traveler's eyes widen. What? The princess gestures to the wall. Come with us. You lead the way, down the steps, through the gate, into the chamber. The robes are still there, as they always are. The princess walks slowly, scanning each shape, then stops. By the robe, shaped like a dancer, mid-turn, fingers outstretched. One foot lifted. The traveler gasps. That's it. The starch girl leans in. She danced once, and she was remembered. They stand for a long time in silence. Then, without asking, the traveler kneels and sings a melody not heard in years, maybe centuries, but the robe seems to hum back. You lie beside it, tail flicking softly, listening to a song you've never heard but somehow know. Back in the courtyard, a boy hangs a tunic. He embroidered himself. 3 fig leaves at the hem, the initials of someone not quite gone. A girl places a sash on the bench and whispers to it, then walks away. The memory spreads, not loudly, not in scrolls or speeches, just in starch and scent and a careful fold. As dusk settles, the princess returns to the hidden chamber with a new jar, this one unlabeled. Inside, crushed hibiscus, ink, ash, salt from tears not wept. She places it on the shelf, then turns to you. Maybe one day, she says, they'll starch a robe for us. You blink. Slowly, it's possible. The starch girl hums beside a new robe hanging gently in the warm air. It smells like honey, ink, and the sound of soft footsteps through memory. And you, caretaker, witness, feline archivist, you stretch once, more, and curl into sleep beneath its hem. Because memory needs rest too. Because linen, like love, wrinkles only when it's lived in. And because in the world of forgotten robes, someone must always remember to nap. And now, you let your breath slow. Feel the warmth of the linen beneath you, the scent of starch softened by time. The room around you is still, not because it must be, but because it wants to be. There's no rush. The tokens are all tucked away. The robes are folded just right, and the last bowl of starch has cooled to a gentle stillness. You picture it now. One last robe, fresh from the basin, not yours, not mine, just a robe that holds everything. A robe with laughter caught in the sleeve, a little grief folded into the hem, a collar that smells faintly of fig, of smoke, of quiet, a robe that someone will find one day and not know why it matters, only that it does. So let yourself relax. Let the folds of the day fall gently, like laundry taken in from the line, still warm from the sun. No more work, no more names to remember, just the softness of fabric against skin, the rhythm of breath, the coolness of stone beneath your paws, or maybe your feet, and the knowledge that memory lives not in noise, but in care, in stillness, in starch. You're safe now. You've walked the courtyards, smelled the linen, found the hidden room. You've remembered someone forgotten, and that's more than enough for today. Sleep well.